Hey, welcome back to my channel. There was a very loud truck outside, but if you are new here, then hi, my name is Erica, and today I'm going to talk a bit about the Dad Challenge podcast. Once again, what a shock. But he's been on my mind lately, as you might have been able to tell. And something I've been thinking about, and to be fair, I haven't just been thinking about this in terms of him, but in other people on YouTube, but I've noticed that he uses a logical fallacy known as the false dilemma. Now, another name for the false dilemma is the false dichotomy, which is a lot more descriptive, because what it does is it pits two things against each other that aren't actually against each other, so it forces people to choose between these two things when they're not actually opposed. Like, you could pick two of them, it's not one or the other, A or B. So now when I say this,
and so what a lot of people do on YouTube is they'll just, like, if they realize they're not getting connected to you anymore, you're not really calling them out anymore, they'll just go to your haters videos, which is fine, right? YouTube is a great place for that. If you don't like me, you'll find someone who doesn't like me, and then you'll go comment, "You're right, he's an asshole, and I just realized."
What I mean is that Josh, a lot of times, both him and his subscribers, to be clear now, so if you're a subscriber of him and you're like, no, nobody does that, then I would implore you to pay more attention, because once you start to notice it, it's all you see. But one thing he says a lot is you're either against child exploitation or you're against me. Now, Josh is not the one person who speaks out against child exploitation, and even if he was, the thing is he doesn't, like, me being against his misogyny, his ableism, his racism, his fatphobia, that doesn't mean I'm pro child exploitation. And you might be saying, well, okay, but then why would you care so much that Josh picks on these assholes? And here's why, and I think this is a very important conversation. So if you haven't watched any of my videos on the Dad Challenge podcast, I think this might be one of the most important ones, if not the most important one. I don't know. But when you're picking on someone for being fat, or when you're saying ableist things or racist things, even if they're not a good person, and even if you just think you're saying it towards that specific person, or not, when you are going after a marginalized group, when you are going after women, when you are going after disabled people, when you are going after black people, you are going after the whole group. Now, I'll try to elaborate on what I mean by that. You've probably seen the meme that went around last year that said, when you make fun of Kamala Harris for being a woman and being a woman of color, she's not really seeing that, but the women of color in your life are, and now they're seeing how you really feel about them. Because when you attack a characteristic because of the person being a member of a marginalized group, then you are attacking that marginalized group, even if you don't mean it or if you don't think you are. Another example of this was last year when Harry Styles was on the Vogue of her wearing a dress. Of course, our favorite problematic political pundit, Candace Owens, had to be like, what happened to manly men? Men are becoming so soft, blah, blah, blah. And so then Miley Cyrus's younger sister, Noah Cyrus, tweeted back at Candace Owens and said something about, shut up, Candace Owens, you and your happy hair. Now that was racist. I may not like Candace Owens, and I'm not here to white knight for Candace Owens, but the thing is you don't attack her for being a black woman. Instead, attack her for being close-minded and for reinforcing these harmful gender stereotypes that shouldn't have to exist. Because if not, it's taking away from your argument. Like, I don't care what Josh says. Him constantly making fun of women's bodies does take away from his argument. And you want proof of that? I'll give you it.
See, I like to think that, this is the funny part of it. I like to think that the people that I snark on actually watch and laugh.
Because recently he reacted to a video of the Bram fam reacting to him. Now, they're a family vlogging channel. I don't know much about them, but they were laughing about his jokes. And he's like, and this is what I want. I don't want to hurt them. I want them to be laughing at my jokes.
Snark on, actually watch and laugh. I actually know of a few who do. I'm not going to say who they are, but I know a few people have said that they watch my videos on them. They get together, they get the popcorn out, the kids get to bed, and they will watch my snark on them and others, obviously. They actually do. And I'm just looking at my own face. A part of me thinks that, a lot of this isn't fun, but it's like, obviously it's comedy, it's satire.
And that's fine, but then don't say you're white knighting for children, first of all. And second of all, realize that these family vloggers aren't actually paying attention to you being like, you're exploiting your children. No, instead they're laughing at the stupid jokes you made, because it is a distraction tactic. If you want to be more successful in your argument, Josh, and I realize Josh doesn't want my advice because I have 3.1k subscribers and he has like 100k, but if you really care about the children as you say you do, then you would pay attention to the fact that a lot of people aren't paying attention to your actual message. And in fact, it's gotten to the point where a lot of people have hypothesized that what your message isn't what you're claiming it is, that you're just using it as an excuse to attack women, to be ableist, to be fatphobic, to bully people. And now, I don't know if that's your true intention, but that's how you come across. And I know we don't always understand how we're being perceived. Like, I don't necessarily know how people are perceiving me, but Josh, if you really want to know how you're being perceived as a very nasty, misogynistic, gross person. Now, I'm not saying Josh is those things, but I'm saying that's how he comes across, and he doesn't seem like he wants to come across that way, but then again, he does nothing to change it, because you talking about women, you talking about vaginas and the way they smell, that harms all women, because it contributes to a culture that objectifies and makes fun of women and doesn't take us seriously. And that harms all women, not just the specific woman that you're targeting because you don't think she's a good person. But it's not okay because Josh, you're not actually getting at the meat of the issue. If the issue is child exploitation, which, by the way, is something I'm very against, in case anybody's wondering.
For them, okay? So so what I'm telling you is that it's working. If you don't like the exploitation of children online, what we're doing here is working. We're calling it out, and I think for the most part, I'll get 2 or 3 negative comments, but for the rest of the...
But if what you're trying to get at is child exploitation, and you're trying to bring awareness to it, and you're trying to put a stop to it, then talk about that. Talk about those issues. And talk about why it's a problem. Don't talk about just Fam being a redhead wearing yellow. I'm a redhead. Well, I dye my hair red, but I dye my hair red, and a lot of my clothes are yellow. And you know what, Josh? I love yellow. And you will not take away my joy when I'm wearing yellow, because it brings me joy. And I'm not trying to take away Josh's joy. If wearing a certain color brings him joy, but if I think it looks bad on him, I'm not gonna tear him apart for that. Like, I know how to keep my opinions to myself, because I know what really matters and what doesn't matter at the end of the day.
He sees it. So, okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Here's a good one.
Definitely.
Here's some tea. Did Jessica ever put Caden in speech therapy?
Now, another thing I wanted to touch on is recently he's been interviewing one of Just Fam's ex-best friends, Janelle, and he comes across as very gossipy in these interviews. He wants, like, the dirt. He wanted to know who Jess had a threesome with, which I don't give a fuck. Who she sleeps with is not my business. If Jess wants to divulge that information, good for her. But I don't need to search around for that information and then ask her ex-best friend, like, do you know who she had a threesome with? Like, it doesn't affect me. First of all, that's creepy. And another question he asked was, did she put her son in speech therapy? Now, as someone who's been in, I was in speech therapy for 18 years, and now I know what Josh would probably say if he heard that. He'd probably be like, well, you clearly need more of that. But no, this is the best it's gonna get. I learned techniques to minimize my stutter, but then at the end of my speech therapy, when I was a senior in high school, I really focused on not minimizing my stutter, but instead coming to terms with it and being okay with how I speak. And that's actually part of the reason I made a YouTube channel, but not going to get into that right now because I could talk about that for a while. But, so first of all, Josh, no, I don't need more. And even if I did, it's not your business. But Jess Fam's son going to speech therapy or not going to speech therapy is not the public's business. And if Josh really cares about the children's privacy, then why the hell would you be asking somebody's ex-best friend if they ever sent their child to speech therapy? Josh, it's not your business, and it's not your fans' business either. So, like, if I had a thing where I had my fans put in questions, and then I was interviewing someone and using those questions, you know what? I would not use that question because I would be like, that's a very personal question, and unless that person wants to come forward and share that answer, it's none of your fucking business, Josh. And again, Josh is someone who white knights for disabled people while being a raging ableist. I made a whole video on his ableism towards the daughter in fathering autism and towards the disabled community in general, thinking that we don't have lives, we don't date, we don't face the same repercussions as non-disabled people, which is not true, Josh. But if you care so much about disabled people, why are you trying to out somebody whether they go to speech therapy or not? And now I'm going to get into a bit of a personal story. When I was in middle school, I was ashamed to be in speech therapy. I didn't want people to know I was in speech therapy, even though it was pretty obvious that I had issues with my speech. Like, if anybody heard me talk, they would know that I at least needed speech therapy. Even if I didn't go to it, then it was probably something I needed. But I was embarrassed. And so if somebody came and outed me against my will, that would have crushed me. And I mean, now I'm much more confident in my disability, and I'm like, yeah, I had speech therapy, and if I went to speech therapy now for some reason, I would not be embarrassed. But the difference is I get to tell my story on my terms. Josh, a lot of times, likes to talk about informed consent. You know what informed consent entails? Being able to tell your story on your own terms and not having somebody tell your story for you when you don't want them to. I don't know if Hess's child wants people to know their personal business. I don't know. First of all, I don't know the child. Second of all, even if I did, if the child had a YouTube channel and they wanted to come out and be like, yeah, I go to speech therapy, or no, I don't go to speech therapy, that's up to that person. But Josh, it's not up to you and your fans and Janelle to out people. And I think if you really want a white knight for child exploitation, then you should not do that. Actually, I think no matter what, you should not out somebody for a medical condition, for being gay, for anything. If people want to tell their stories, let them tell them on their own terms. And if they don't, then just shut up and leave them alone. I know I'm very sassy today, but hopefully you learned something from this video, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you have not already and you would like to watch more of my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.